Hey there, community bankers. Welcome back to the Correspondent podcast from Independent Correspondent Bankers Bank. I'm your host, Madison Caplinger, marketing specialist for ICBB. If you haven't been hearing about AI, you haven't been paying attention because AI is everywhere and agentic AI solutions are being sold to bankers right and left. But what is it and what can it do for bankers? Today, I talked to Angela Murphy, better known as Payments Elsa, who is a sought-after event speaker and VP of Marketing and Innovation at Pidgin, about agentic AI. And our customer experience specialist, Chasity Bruce, joined us for this conversation as well. It was so fun and so informative. And Angela will also be presenting on this topic at our Link event in Murfreesboro, Tennessee in June, and our Boom event in Bowling Green in November. So please welcome Angela and Chasity to the podcast. Hey there, community bankers. I am here with Payments Elsa, Angela Murphy from Pidgin, and one of our customer experience managers, Chasity Bruce. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, Madison. We're good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here as a part of this conversation.
I'm excited to have you. I know you've had a really awesome career, but for those who may not know you from the podcast, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career so far. And, side question, where did the name Payments Elsa come from? Whoever's watching on YouTube can see that you have the braid, but where did that persona come from?
I get that question so often, and it's one of my favorite questions at this point. I have several years under my belt in the payments industry. I started out in B2B payments. I have worked in artificial intelligence. I've been basically in fintech the whole way and looking at the relationship between financial technology and traditional banking relationships and what that means for account holders. So when I started, it was from a non-traditional path. My PhD is in rhetoric, which is how and why people communicate in particular ways. It's a humanitarian degree and nothing to do with finance or with business. I fell into the payments industry, if I'm being completely honest. I wanted to solve problems and to help people. That's really what I wanted to do. And the payments industry and fintech in particular has lent itself very well to that ethos. And love being a part of Pidgin. I'm the vice president of marketing and solutions at a company called Pidgin. We are the payments nerd birds. If you ever want to reach out to us, we have some really kooky content. If you're into that, please come find us. We do the things. And to answer the side question about how Payments Elsa came to be, I am a classically trained singer. And I really like to sing karaoke. And my first ever opportunity for a speaking engagement was in Disney World. And there was a restaurant that had karaoke on offer that night. I was by myself. I went up, I sang a song, just, put myself out there. I was really nervous about speaking the following day. And I thought, if I can just get up on this stage and sing one song in front of a bunch of strangers, I'm sure I can handle tomorrow. And so that is kind of where it started from. The catalytic moment happened in Las Vegas at Money 2020, where I was with several industry partners. We were spending time together. And one of them said, "Oh, there's no way you can sing. You're not an Elsa. That's not real." And my advocate / mentor said, "Why don't you prove him wrong? Would you sing a few bars?" And so in the Venetian in Las Vegas, I sang a few bars of Let It Go, which I don't normally sing in public. And there's this super grainy video recording somewhere out there. Please don't post that to YouTube, whoever has it. I don't need that in my life. The video quality is bad. But I just stepped out with boldness and I said, you know what, if this is going to be who I am, then I need to lean into it. And so I sang in the middle of the Venetian without fear.
That is about the coolest story I think I've ever heard on this podcast. You've combined a few of my personal favorite things, the humanities, music, and proving someone wrong. So,
I love that for you.
oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. If this is who you're going to be, step out in boldness and lean into it. I want to post that, tattoo that somewhere. That's so cool.
I do have a tattoo that has something along those lines.
Very nice.
She's everything wrapped in a bow.
You know what? If I could be a bow, I would be a very glittery one.
Yeah, so you're doing a couple of presentations for some of ICBB's events this year. You'll be at our Link event in Tennessee in Murfreesboro in June, and then at our Boom event in November in Bowling Green, doing a presentation on Agentic AI for bankers. So just to kind of start at the ground level, what is Agentic AI and how does it compare to something like a ChatGPT that our audience might be more familiar with?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are different types of artificial intelligence. And something that I like to do with people is to just level set. What artificial intelligence tools have you been interacting with? Because I think that as bankers, as people in financial services, we live in something that I like to call alphabet soup, where it's an acronym, it's a phraseology, it's something, and it's just, what are you talking about at the end of the day? So, for the purposes of your question, there's agentic AI and there is generative AI. There are a lot of other acronyms and other things that I'm going to cover in my talks later this year, and we'll be able to unpack that a little bit further. But generative AI is where you go in to an interface, a user interface, and you ask a question and a response is generated, given back to you. So it's more of a call and response relationship between you and the AI. When you're looking at agentic AI, it's incredibly different. When we're looking at agentic AI and the possibilities, it's that you basically now have an intern that you can train to perform tasks and to take things off of your plate that you might not necessarily need to spend an hour or two of your day doing. And you can program an agent, an AI agent, an AI, for lack of a better term, person or individual to execute those tasks on your behalf and then serve up that information to you so that you can upskill and then use that information to make better decisions in your role.
Awesome. So if, ChatGPT is a, a writer, then a generative, or I'm sorry, an agentic AI is more like it sounds like it could be a lot of things, an intern, an assistant, something like that.
Absolutely. And I do have an example of what that looks like. So I use Claude personally. I know that there are other solutions out there, Perplexity, Gemini, etc., where they're generating responses back. And I know that they do wonderful things. I use Claude and I have built a couple of agents to help me with my personal workflows because I am one person and I cannot divide into three people. It's just not available to me. Whenever the DNA or whatever the scientist it is figures that out, let me know. But until then, I need to use some agents. And so one of the things that I have asked it to do is to look at my emails since January 1st and let me know which net new opportunities that I have received as a speaker and a thought leader since January 1st. So I went in, there's a way to speak to Claudette. I call her Claudette. There's a way to speak to Claudette and say, hey, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to show it to you, just like I would show a student, just like I would show an intern. This is what I need you to do. This is the information I need you to look at. Would you please then take all of this information and provide me with these answers under these particular parameters? There's a lot of opportunity here, I think, in financial services. It's more about how we use it in a judicious way and make sure that we're protecting the information that we're asking it to look at.
Right, for sure. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there as long as we are. And, AI has really come a long way. I mean, it's only been in the last 3 or 4 years that I've really been hearing a lot about AI, and I feel like now it's, everywhere. So, in kind of plain English, explain it to me like I'm five. What can an AI agent do today that the AI we had 2 years ago couldn't have done?
So I think that originally when artificial intelligence kind of came into the public sphere, right? It was, okay, I'm going to put in a prompt and you're going to give me something back. And it was very Google-esque in the behavior metrics. Now it's different because you can program it. You can ask it to complete tasks on your behalf while you're not there. And that is incredibly different than 2 years ago. And I think that it's also something that's not in the industry optimized just yet for a variety of reasons. And some of them have to do with data protections. And I do think we're going to speak about that today. But we're going from the, I'm going to ask you a question or I could Google it mindset to what are the manual tasks that I could offload to an agent, to a robot, to a computer that then allow me to make better decisions in my role and also allow me to upskill and create additional value and revenue for my institution?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing massive value in that. And you've kind of mentioned some use cases in almost like a personal assistant capacity, scanning through your emails, things like that. And I mean, I see the use there for banking too, but like, what are some real world use cases for bankers? Are you seeing banks adopt AI? And, how's that looking?
So I'm seeing kind of the whole spectrum at this point. Being an AI expert, you hear everything. Some things you know, some things you don't want to know. It's all over the place. I've spoken with executives and practitioners who say, "Oh yeah, we're trying to figure it out, but we're not sure like where we need to implement and we want to be careful." And then I have people on the other end of the spectrum who say, "Well, I just banned it." And I just did a podcast, the AI Hat podcast recently, and it creates this issue of shadow AI. So you can have a policy within your institution where you ban artificial intelligence usage. You have teams that need assistance to work through manual processes that are creating barriers to revenue and to a myriad of other things. And then you ban it, and your team is still going to go to a Perplexity and say, okay, I can't read this document. I don't have the time to go through 357 pages of OCC guidance on what stablecoin is going to do. And this is a weird example. However, your teams are already using it. They're going to upload the NDA. That's a problem. They might be tempted to upload a spreadsheet to find the one field in 3,000 that they need to update the GL. at some point, we have to recognize that banning it isn't going to be the path forward. What I will say is that we, as an industry, I think the gut check reaction is to just, oh, we're not going to do it. When we could have a bit more of an open mind. I think as an industry, we failed a little bit in terms of fintech partnerships 15 to 20 years ago. We thought that fintech was a fad. We did not encourage collaboration with technology companies that could support our account holders and the needs that they had. I think that this is just a new wave of that same ideology. And I think that we can learn from the mistakes that we made in the past. So when we look at Agentic AI, when we look at artificial intelligence, broadly speaking, in our institutions, as long as we keep the scope narrow and we crawl and then we walk, then it's something that not only is going to serve our teams better, it's going to serve our account holders better. And at the end of the day, it's going to serve the bottom line better.
As I'm here, you're so passionate about AI, and I absolutely love that because personally, I'm intrigued by it. Like, I personally use it. I don't upload documents or anything to it, but if I need to compose an email and I'm working on 15 other things, I will use it to help me, find better grammar checks or stuff like that. But I think what majority of our customers may be concerned about is this going to replace jobs? Are people going to be replaced by agentic AI?
I love that question. And I so appreciate you raising that to the surface. Financial services is a unique industry. And we have a limitation in terms of our expertise. There is a level of attrition that is happening in this industry, and it's not being backfilled. And that's something that actually bothers me as a person, because I don't have 33 years of operations experience to understand what the back office is in a bank. And if I'm being 100% honest, neither does a robot. And that is where I think that we need to have a conversation adjustment. AI is not coming to steal a job that needs expertise. Period. We are experts, and we need to be bringing up the next generation of experts after us. Because yes, there are some things that you can put into a model. There are processes in the back office in an institution that can be automated. And there still needs to be payments and operations experts in the back office. They will never be obsolete. Those people will never be obsolete. And what I would encourage is, for any institution that's listening to this, and you can call me on this in public, I'm totally fine with it. We need to be backfilling these positions. We need to be giving chances to smart people who want to learn operations, who want to understand batch files, who want to understand what the general ledger does, and then how instant payments and payments as a horizontal in the institution factors in as a revenue driver. We need those smart people, because there is not a single robot on this earth that is going to do any better than the person that I guarantee somebody's listening to this, the person that has been there for 27 years and knows every single account, knows every single account holder, understands how it posts. You need that person. So where is their next person? Because the AI is not what's going to be scary. It's the fact that you as an institution might not have started investing in long-term talent.
I think that is a really good response. And I think it's going to comfort our listeners, our community listeners to this, because I know one of the main reasons that for them banning AI is because, they're scared of it. They're scared it's going to replace people. They're scared it's going to cause, compliance issues and all that other good stuff. So I think it's going to be really comforting for them to hear that. One thing that I learned is, or I've heard some bankers say, is they don't want their people to use it as a crutch, that they still want to invest in their long-term talent. But how do they get their people to not use it as a crutch, per se?
I think that it's a similar question to like when the internet became a thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm just old enough. And I think that it is possible for people to use artificial intelligence as a crutch. I will say that on Monday, I spoke as a guest lecturer at a business school in my region to people who do not children, but young adults who are university aged that had questions about, well, how does artificial intelligence fit into my life? And they are confused about how to use it. And we as financial services professionals have a level of responsibility at the end of the day. If we look within our institutions, we know that there are problems that don't need more people thrown at them. We need a technology solution to free up time for the talented people in our institution. We also have a responsibility to the next generation to communicate to them that, yes, artificial intelligence is great. It is a tool. It is not a solution. And that is key. Artificial intelligence is a tool. It is not a solution. Your intelligence, your expertise, your critical thinking, that's the solution. The tool you use to get there, it can be a hoe, it can be a rake, it can be a tractor, whatever it needs to be. But you're the one that's using the hoe. You're the one that's using the rake. You're the one that's driving the tractor. You're the one that's driving the lawnmower. And if you're not there, then those tools, they can lay there on the ground. It's not going to do anything for anybody.
Yeah, I love that approach. I taught a digital marketing course for juniors and seniors at my alma mater last year as an adjunct. And, I took the approach with assignments of like, I'm not stupid. I know that you have AI at your fingertips and you're going to use it somehow. Here's how you can use it and here's how you can't. Now, whether they followed my guidance, difficult to prove because, there are tools to check for that, but they don't always quite get it. But yeah, I love that because I think you're right. I think they are confused about where they fit into a world where AI can now do the things that were once entry points into a lot of industries. And I think that's the tough thing. But I think banking on the whole is pretty good, especially community banking, about mentoring and about looking for people who want to be the next operations expert in their back office and the next, CFO or whatever it may be. We've listed some hesitations a lot of bankers have about, using an AI solution, things, like, it replacing employees or compliance. And, like you said, bankers are just kind of a change resistant group overall. And that goes back to every, big new shiny thing that's been introduced. The kind of instinct is to shut it down and be like, no, and see it as a threat. But is that the most common pushback that you get around adopting AI solutions, or are there some others that might kind of surprise us?
I think that the larger concern is just, if I don't understand it, we don't need it. And if we're being realistic, when we look at operations within financial institutions, the operational backbone of most institutions is women. That's where the expertise lies. I mean, you go back to the advent of ACH in California in the 70s, it got brushed off as just some fad. And that literally ended up landing in the laps of executive assistants of the C-suites of bankers. And I think that we have a huge opportunity. When we think about artificial intelligence, when we think about innovation, the pushback that I get is, well, we don't need that because we're fine. And it's a gloss over to the fact that the person in that conversation doesn't want to seem like they don't know what they're talking about. So if you are a leader and you are listening to this today, it is okay to not know what you do not know. The best thing that you can do for your institution is to start asking those questions of the people that are the bread and butter of your institution, of the thought leaders like me and Chasity and Madison and all of these other people out here. We're fine if you don't know the answer. Come and ask. We would love to help. That's all we're here to do. And I think that this complex of, if I can't talk about it and feel like I'm the smartest person in the room, is actually inherently limiting our ability for innovation.
Essentially, having such a closed mindset will eventually cripple your institution. You know, you need to be welcoming to up and coming fintechs and things like this in order to grow your institution. So, like you said, it's okay to not know. You know, do what I do. I always say, I don't have a degree from college, but if you ask anybody else, I've got a degree in Googling because I will figure it out. I will figure it out. But so, you know, I hope, if, like you said, if anyone's listening, just to carry, like you said, carry that mindset. It's okay to not know. So I really appreciate you saying that.
I work with a credit union. I that's who my banking relationship is through. I live in Kansas City. There are well over 100 unique bank and credit union brands in my 5-county metro area. I've heard it all at this point. And I just I want people to feel comfortable with being uncomfortable when it comes to innovation, because if we're being really clear about the subject matter, the deposit drain, the attrition, that's already happened in the larger landscape of banking and community banking. And we have to fight back at some point. And sometimes that just comes from, hey, I missed the boat. I didn't innovate when my account holders needed it. And I'm ready to try something different now because I want to recapture the market share that we lost.
Yeah, and you stumbled onto a little bit of soapbox of mine about what you've said about AI. I've said about digital marketing. You know, you can find plenty of community banks that will say, you know, oh, we don't need that because, you know, XYZ, we're fine. And, you know, my thought is like, you might be fine right now. Are you going to be fine in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, when, you know, your competition has kind of jumped on that train and they're up here and you might still be back here with AI or digital marketing or whatever it is. So I think there's an amount of forward thinking you have to do too, especially right now where the pace of innovation has picked up so much.
No, I think that's a wonderful point to make, Madison. Chasity, do you have other thoughts on that as well from your direct experience?
I have the similar thoughts. In my experience, people who are scared of things, for example, like stablecoin, they are just like, nope, not going to happen. Like negative thoughts, we're not going to offer it at all. People are not going to want this. And then the second that, July, I think Kevin said July 18th of next year, matter of fact, stablecoin's happening, and everybody's going to get left behind. All those who just said, nope, we're banning it, you're going to get left behind. So, and the same thing with AI. You're going to ban it, you're going to get left behind. So I have similar thoughts on that.
I think of it as, well, I think, people aren't going to want this are kind of famous last words in a lot of ways. I remember, being back in business school, learning about like the advent of Netflix and how it was a book we read for a class, but it was talking about, at the time, the way people were exposed to new movies, new media was like Blockbuster, right? You go to Blockbuster, you rent a movie for however long, and then you take it back. And if you'd asked like Blockbuster customers what they want, they would have been like, longer period to keep it before I have to return it, or, whatever. So when Netflix comes around with streaming, and, at first it's the mail-in DVDs, you get your DVD in the mail and send it back that way. Like that wasn't on anyone's radar. Streaming was definitely not on anyone's radar. But I mean, look at where Netflix is now and look at where Blockbuster is now. So I think of this as kind of a Blockbuster Netflix problem as well, a little bit.
I remember Blockbuster.
Does anybody remember Movie Gallery? The competitor to Blockbuster?
Redbox.
Yeah, so there's like, there's Blockbuster, there's Movie Gallery, and there's like Redbox. I think, was it Redbox?
I think Redbox is still around.
Is it? They used to have it at my local Kroger, but they do not anymore.
I've seen a few around. Yeah. And I think I've used it as recently as like 2018, back when laptops still had disk drives.
Right. So this is what we're talking about in terms of finance, right? We have seen this happen in other industries. And I understand that we are much more regulated than digital media concepts. We get that. We also have a level of expertise in this industry where we can get out ahead of it. We have the Genius Act. We have the OCC guidance. We have the FDIC suggestion and recommendation that they put out in December. I mean, there's a lot of smart people in this room. I think that because we touch people's money, we operate out of fear and not out of opportunity optimization. And if we started doing that within the guardrails that we already have established, that's where the revenue is. We've already lost the money. The deposits are already in digital wallets. Like it's already happened. That has already happened. So do you want it back? Do you want to be better? Do you want to learn your lesson? Or do you want to be acquired? Like what is your choice now? Because right now, as community bankers, like I was raised in a small town. I could, if we had a main street, like I said, small town, we had a stop sign. But from a community banking perspective, we know these people. We know who they are. We know their kids. We've gone to their basketball games. We've gone to their plays. Do we want to be able to provide them and their kids the ability to continue to bank with us? What does that look like? Because there are secure ways to do it. There are great ways to do it. We just have to say, yes, we're willing, and this is how we're going to educate our account holders.
I love that. And I love that you brought up guardrails, because it goes really well into my next question of like, what guardrails can banks put in place to get the most out of their agentic AI while minimizing risk? Is it the guardrails that are already, set in place by our regulatory bodies? Are there some, internal governance things that would need to change? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Chastity, do you want to go first? It's okay if you don't want to, because I can dive into this, but it's going to be like a bit of a rabbit hole for 3.5 minutes, give or take 37 seconds.
Personally, I think we already have established those guardrails, but I mean, with some minor adjustments, I'm sure it's something new. But what do you think?
So, as institutions, we are very careful about the information that we have within our four walls, and if and when any of that information ever leaves our four walls. When you think about artificial intelligence, broadly speaking, but specifically agentic AI, the provider that you use, because I can almost guarantee that no one listening to this today is going to try to build their own agentic AI solution. Like, please don't. Focus those tech dollars somewhere better than trying to build an agentic AI. There are service providers out there that are well trusted in our industry, and you should be speaking to those people. I'm not going to name names, but they are out there. And if you ask me, I will tell you over LinkedIn via direct message. The issue here with agentic AI and with artificial intelligence, broadly speaking, in financial services, is that you have to draw the box. And you have to say, these pieces of information do not leave this institution. And you have to work with a trusted partner that is going to maintain that box. And I'm going to tell you right now, OpenAI is not your friend in drawing that box. That's not your friend. Don't even no. You need to work with a trusted third-party service provider that has acumen in the financial services industry that can contractually guarantee that there are parameters around what data sits with you and does not ever leave the four walls of your institution. And if you have a third-party service provider that cannot guarantee that contractually, do not work with them. Because you are working with PII. This is personally identifiable information. This is social security numbers. This is account numbers. This is routing numbers. This is instant payments. This is potentially stablecoin. This is assets within your institution. I do not recommend building it. I do recommend, when you work with a third-party service provider, making sure that you know exactly who owns the data, who has access to the data, and the explainability and auditability of the data lake that you and your teams are going to be using. And if you don't have those three things, then you don't need to be working with that entity. And it might be worthwhile to engage an expert to help you make sure that those things stay safe within your institution. Sorry, I didn't mean to go all rabbit hole and super soapbox, but
I think that answer was exceptionally well, because you gave our customers three important things that they needed to be doing when exploring the possibility of partnering with artificial intelligence.
Read that contract, friends. Read the contract. And if you and your general counsel don't have a level of comfort with it, I do not offer direct legal advice because I do not have my JD. I have my PhD, which is different. I'll give it a look. I'm not going to offer you legal advice, but I could give you my opinion as an expert on what I think might be the holes in this scenario, things that you might want to take into account. Once again, not tax or legal advice, personal opinions of the payments Elsa. But I would do that because not everybody needs to be an AI expert, right? You don't have to be an AI expert, but you do need to know how it's going to affect your institution, your teams, and your account holders.
Some level of knowledge is important. Yeah.
Yeah. And see, I know, Angela, that you have a level of expertise in financial services because the amount of disclaimers you just gave. That's how I know that you do, in fact, know this industry and know what you're talking about. But yeah, since we're kind of speaking on, guardrails and how to, really set an institution up for success with the use of AI, we've talked about the importance of the human element while we're undergoing all of this, digital transformation throughout our industry. And it's something community banks pride themselves on, and rightfully so. So what's the one thing that you would never let an AI do without a human watching?
Ooh, probably like 77 different things, and not all of them are financial services related.
Fair, yeah.
I am a big believer in the fact that humans always need to be a part of this conversation. When we look at the trajectory of financial services and the way that we have behaved as institutions towards our account holders historically, there are some things to be said about how we can make adjustments, how we could train AI to make better and less biased decisions than we have in the past. The honest answer is that I don't have a single never task. I have a principle, and it's that the higher the stakes and the lower the reversibility, the more deliberately we need to design the human role into the workflow of artificial intelligence. So it's not a never question for me. It's how do we design a dynamic system that upscales our workforce, that benefits our teams in the service of our account holders? I hope that answers the question.
It does. And I think a principle might actually be more helpful to our customers than a never list. What do you think, Chasity?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've given a lot to think about in terms of, agentic AI, how it's best used in the context of a community bank and some of the guardrails to be put in place. So let's say, a banker's listening to this podcast and they're like, all right, I'm convinced. I'm now of the opinion that we need to start exploring this. And like they see the potential now, right? But they don't know where to start. So what is step one of, adopting the right solution? If you're like, okay, I need to start exploring this, what's the very next thing that you do?
So what I offer to institutions that I have the privilege to work with is to look at what's most manual or painful within your institution. Do an internal audit. What is hard for your teammates that they don't really need to be doing? And what does that look like? Are they still hand keying information? Are they manually processing batch files? Those types of things. What exceptions are getting manually processed within your general ledger? Look at what people are spending hours a week doing that maybe they don't need to do, or they really wish they didn't have to do, which is also important because this is about talent and acquisition and making sure that people want to still work with us, right? So one is look at what's painful And that's a hard thing to do. So if you're a leader, if you're a director, if you're somebody who's a champion, it's hard to look at what doesn't quite work because nobody wants to talk about it. I understand. But the stuff that doesn't work is your biggest revenue opportunity. I can guarantee you. So look at what's painful. Pick the top 3 things out of that list. Look for the low-hanging fruit. Look at a well-documented process, something that is manual, that is costing FTE, that could be optimized. And that's the phrase, could be optimized. When you're talking to leadership, when you're asking for investment, you're going to want to talk to them in terms that make sense. So we could optimize this process and it has the potential to generate X revenue. Always bring it back to the facts because that's what they're going to want to hear. What I'm going to tell you is, yes, stick to the facts, talk about the brass tacks and talk about the revenue and talk about the FTE and all of that. And also know that there are human beings on your team that are very thankful that you're trying in the first place. So keep that in your heart when you have these difficult conversations. But pick one is the biggest advice that I have. Pick the one thing that's ugly, that doesn't need to be done by a human, that is costing your team's time, that you could hand off to a robot. Make it small. Just this big is all it has to be, just for you to test it out. Because I think that the biggest mistake we make in financial services is when we think through the concept of organizational change, we think that it has to be all things to all people all at once, everything everywhere all at once. And we have to solve it. And if we don't solve it, then we failed. That's not true. We are community bankers. We serve the people. And if we can solve a problem for 5 people, we can solve a problem for 50, and then 500, and then 5,000. And if we give ourselves the permission to understand that from an institutional perspective, we know where that low-hanging fruit is. I know you all know where it is. I'm seeing you all in my mind. But I can see that we all know the problems that we wish that we could solve. And it's just looking at that and saying, okay, what's the smallest thing that we can do to create the largest amount of value in this conversation?
Yes, I love that. Starting small. I think it makes things feel more manageable too, because, if you go about like, okay, I have to solve this whole big problem for my entire organization forever, like that's too overwhelming. No one's going to start that, right?
My mom is one of the most amazing human beings on the planet Earth. And I just always tried to do everything. It was a good lesson for me coming into this industry. And she used to ask me a question. She used to say, Angela, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it's this concept of we have complex problems to tackle as community bankers. 1, we don't want to get acquired. 2, our competitors are literally there every single day. And 3, our account holders need us. And the way that we tackle that problem is just a little bit at a time. And I think if we gave ourselves the grace to start from that perspective, we would get a whole lot further.
Absolutely agree. Okay, so the very last question, it's not really a question, but just give a little bit of a plug. Why should bankers in the area within driving distance come hear you speak at the Tennessee Link event in June or Boom in November?
Do you like glitter?
Personal, yes.
As long as it's not in my house or on my floors.
No. So fully joking. I'm basically 11% glitter on any given day. So I'm going to be very sparkly when I'm up there and having the privilege to speak with all of you. Secondly, I do think that if you have questions, you should ask me. I am not somebody who gets up there and, one, pretends to know everything, two, acts like I have experience I don't have, and three, I honestly want to hear what you think. I want your questions. I want to know what's affecting you and your account holders. And I'm not up there for my benefit. I want to know what you have to say, because the community bankers in this conversation are what's important to me. So if you want to be a part of a conversation where you feel valued and you feel like you can ask the hard-hitting questions that are affecting your teams, affecting your remit, affecting your leadership, then I'm your person. Come to the session. Let's have a conversation.
Well, I'm sold. How about you, Chasity?
Yeah, I was already going, but now I'm definitely going.
Same. Same. Yeah, we were both going to be there anyway, but now we're like
going to. She sold me on the glitter. I love everything sparkly. Like, I can't help it. I mean, anything sparkly, anything loud, I'm there. I'm there for it.
Yes, for sure. Angela, thank you so much for, coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom. I think our bankers are going to get a lot out of it, and, hopefully they'll come see you in person and ask their questions. And Chasity, thank you for joining as well with the community banker, correspondent banker perspective. I think this was a really fun conversation.
I got so much out of this. I can't wait to see her at Link Tennessee, and boom, I'm gonna have like all the questions. So I find this stuff
so good.
I find this stuff intriguing, honestly, and it's like the more you know kind of thing. So
well, I was pleased to meet your acquaintance. I'm so excited that you were here for the conversation today. I can't wait for us to have glitter and payments discussions.
I'm gonna wear something so sparkly. You're gonna love it.
I can't wait.
Well, you know what?
Todd
Me too now.
Came back from meeting you in Georgia, and he was like, she reminds me of you, and you remind me of her. Like, you're both. I'm just because normally on any given day, I'm pretty loud, and I'm like, I wear sparkly stuff that not normally anybody who's an introvert would wear. So yeah.
Well, I'm very excited about that. We should coordinate outfits.
Now, what are the chances? Which Todd's been on the podcast before, so what are the chances we get Todd to show up in sparkles?
You know what? I think if we asked very nicely and bribed him with a cupcake, it might work.
I don't know. I think it might take more than a cupcake.
We'll reconvene. We'll be strategic. This is a strategic partnership to get Todd to wear glitter.
He's gonna kill us. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to see everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Correspondent Podcast from Independent Correspondent Bankers Bank. We hope you've heard something that you can take back to your community bank. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review, or on Spotify, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you next time, community bankers.